Technically, it should have been within my purview. I got a little bit distracted by the big-titted blonde. I'm sorry, okay? I really am sorry. I got distracted. I'll do better. But what I noticed about Kyle is that he didn't actually... I think this video is going to be really instrumental and informative for you if you feel like there's a gap right now between the person that you are and the person that you would like to be. This will be incredibly instrumental because how many people have actually offered you this, right? If you think back and you think about like your mother, your father, maybe a teacher or professor, how many of those people, and when you think about those roles, they should be assuming the role of a mentor, a leader, someone who's offering you a good example of what you could be. But if you're really honest, like how many of these people have actually asked you if you are living in alignment with who you want to be? And my concern is that, much like myself, you probably have never had that experience. And so step number one is just figuring out what that is exactly, right? Who do you want to be? And not because of the way that you're perceived by others, but at the end of the day, when the smoke and mirrors go away and you're left with yourself and your thoughts, are you actually satisfied with that? And so that's not for me to arbitrate, because at the end of the day, you are the only arbiter. You're the only vote left that counts, right? So I'm not trying to infect you with my biases, and I'll be very clear in expounding upon those as I talk about some frankly really black and white memories that I have, that I'm really fond of, by the way, that really informed, just for me personally, who I wanted to become and the character that I've cultivated. And let's be honest, this is a continual work in progress. So the character that I'm continuing to cultivate, and the one that I would like to inspire and encourage you to cultivate in whatever form or fashion that happens to present as for you. So step number one is we have to figure out, what do we resonate with? And I would just ask you to really reflect on, in your life, role models that you've had. Who are some people that you've looked up to? You know, historically for me, it's always been people who just get it done, man. Like Bruce Lee, you know, one of my favorite movies actually came out the year that I was born, 1993. I believe it's called Dragon, a Bruce Lee story. And there's so many freaking epic freaking scenes in that movie, man. And I know it wasn't actually Bruce Lee who was cast in that movie, because unfortunately he had passed away by this point, but that movie really resonated with me. There's just so many scenes where I'm just like, wow, this guy's the fucking man. And that was from a really young age, right? Like 8, 9 years old. I was not only watching this movie, but rewinding to just some of my favorite parts in it, which just incredibly epic. And you have to ask yourself that same question. What has always piqued your curiosity? What have you always been drawn towards? Not in a sexual way, but in a way where you're like, whoa, like that's badass, like that's really cool. So my bias tends to be more masculine things, and maybe you'll resonate especially with my content if that's something that you want. I know for me, my journey has been a process of systematically fixing my feminized physiology, if I were to most aptly characterize it. You know, the truth is that we live in an increasingly feminized world, be it the estradiol, just a potent form of estrogen that men are consuming in toxic tap water, that women who are on, for example, oral contraceptives are renally excreting and urinating into the municipal water supply. So for reasons of that, for reasons of toxic food, industrial seed oils, synthetic polyester fibers and clothing, men don't have the testosterone levels that they used to have. And for me, what I found is that by systematically fixing my physiology and having a free testosterone, for example, that's actually got flagged for being too high, is like above the reference range. If I'm just being honest with you, I've never felt better. I feel so good, man. And the more masculine that I've become, the better that I've felt. And a few case studies, a few memories that I'd like to share with you that really solidified for me the person that I want to become. Not least starts back in pharmacy school. I can remember studying for one of my classes in the media center in the library, and I'm sat at the back in one of these sort of private, concealed compartment. I'm not even sure how to describe it exactly. Kind of like had my own cubby, right? Like my own workspace. There were like slight divides on each side of me so I could really focus. And yet I could hear this guy on his phone, like literally just one space to my left. And a couple minutes goes by, you know, certainly I didn't bother saying anything. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I hear this kid kid who I went to school with, like one of my classmates, Christian, just like this 6'2" Chad monster of a guy. And out of nowhere, he said, "Hey, buddy." And I'm just like, what? Like, that really piqued my curiosity. Like, how is this going to unravel? "Hey, buddy." Just like that. And the guy, like, is just very responsive, like immediately puts his phone down, and Christian just calmly but very assertively instructs him to do that elsewhere. And I'm just like, wow, that is nice, man. Woo! So that always resonated with me. That's really nice. I will never forget that. I'll probably be on my deathbed thinking about that. It was a really great illustration of exuding just this positive masculine frame. It's positive because he's actually improving the lives of everyone in his periphery. Notice that that's actually a win-win for everybody. And the fact that nobody actually had the balls, myself included, to do that, then makes it no surprise that people actually kind of like that inside, if we're being honest, right? I remember this really feminine Brazilian girl who I went to school with. I've got a number of stories I'll tell in a future video about her, but I can remember just like how favorably she responded to that masculinity, right? And other guys just appreciate that too. I appreciated that. It's like, wow, thank you, man. So someone has to be more overt. And I really appreciated Christian's overt nature, which is in stark contrast to what, frankly, is the epitome of covert nature, also not least exemplified by my coworker, Kyle. I mean, this story really cemented in my mind what I didn't want to be. And if this doesn't resonate with you, again, that's perfectly fine. If you're a more feminine individual, maybe this will resonate with you. But for me, I just instinctively found this to be really repulsive, and I just found that I, for whatever reason, could not bring myself to respect this kid. And for what it's worth, I mean, he was a pharmacist at the time. I was a pharmacy intern. Wow, this is one of the best summers of my life. I had this job where I'd like walk around and reload these Pyxis machines with drugs, with medications, pharmaceuticals. And this was the summer that I finally escaped my mind. I finally got out of my head. You have to realize that for the first 20 years of my life, I was the quintessential analysis paralysis. I was living on the momentum of how I was being perceived by others. I wasn't what other people thought I was or what I thought I was. I was what I thought other people thought that I was. And this summer offered me immense liberty. And I was actually out, not even that far away, like 50 feet from the pharmacy. I'd gotten out and I had this cart of medications, albeit narcotics included. And I'm walking down the hallway, and off to my right is like this blonde receptionist who I had developed like a relationship with, just like a working relationship, like strictly professional, but a little bit flirtatious, right? I was having fun, man. I was getting really good at cold approach. I was so high vibe, like just all day, like really high vibe. And because I realized there was hope for me. For once, I actually had a map that I could follow that was going to take me to the promised land. I just had this sense that this was a very developable skill. Cold approach, being better with people, social skills. I was just so excited about life. And that was in stark contrast to one of my coworkers, Kyle, who would just, you could tell in this really like depolarized relationship. He was kind of low vibe, a little bit snobby, a little bit uptight. And I don't mean to like unfairly characterize him if other people saw him differently. I'm just trying to give you like my most genuine, honest interpretation. For all intents and purposes, I know he's doing his best, but he just wasn't a person that I particularly respected. So I'm chatting up this girl to my right, Katie, and then this guy, Kyle, comes from behind me, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, doesn't say a word. He just passes me off to the left, but he pushes my cart like 2 or 3 feet closer to me, as if to say, no, you're a bad boy, Jason. like the cart is out of reach, right? Technically, it should have been within my purview. I got a little bit distracted by the big-titted blonde. I'm sorry, okay? I really am sorry. I got distracted. I'll do better. But what I noticed about Kyle is that he didn't actually say anything. So we got Christian. Hey buddy. Hey buddy. And then we have Kyle. So I found that interesting. You know, I reflected on that later, not least when the CEO, CPO, the chief pharmacy operator, Kevin, pulls me into his office the next day to tell me about that. It's like, wow, so Kyle didn't say anything. He just did this really covert maneuver of like pushing the car closer to me, and then goes to the CPO to talk to me. Wow. So that really bummed me out. You know, I can remember, frankly, just being in Kyle's presence, you know, the following days in that week, and just being really chill and just like waiting to lock eyes with him and just try to like rekindle our connection, man. It was weird, yeah, but he actually never did that. Like, he actually would never look me in the eyes. That didn't resonate with me, and if that maybe doesn't resonate with you, you might appreciate the fact that Kyle was just being very feminine, very covert, very loosey-goosey, not cutting to the chase. You get the sense that not only could he not instruct the adjacent individual who's on his phone to do that elsewhere, Kyle's never going to say, hey buddy. But Kyle's also never going to pull the girl who I pulled later that summer part and parcel because of the thing that I was doing while he was pushing the car closer to me. I was practicing my cold approach, not to pull Katie, but to pull, frankly, the hottest girl, the hottest nurse in the hospital that I'm sure all of the doctors wanted to hook up with. This girl I ended up dating for 3 years, Amanda. And I did so nonchalantly. Actually, I'll put on screen a picture of what I looked like when I started this job, and then what I looked like the summer that I pulled Amanda, you know, as part of my alpha actualization journey. And it's something that I don't even present this to brag about. I present this because it's just, for me, the best thing that I found in terms of finding my freedom and being at ease. And so what I really want to bold, italicize, and underscore is that this journey, the point isn't to get to the point where other people see you pick up this hot nurse, Amanda. Right, the point isn't for this to devolve into this monstrosity of an ego trip where you inadvertently end up actually going back to the point of caring what other people think, which is what I did for the first 20 years of my life. No, the point is you don't give a fuck what other people think, and that actually offers you the immense liberty to then behave in a way that's actually more authentic and to attract people like Amanda, who appreciate that authenticity and appreciate the masculinity of just like getting her number on this piece of Pixis paper, right? And so it's the fact that I wanted to pull women like Amanda, and I realized that people like Kyle would never have the ability to do that because she would never have sexual polarity with him. And frankly, she didn't even have sexual polarity with me the first summer that I started working there, because if I'm being honest, I was more like Kyle. I was more covert. I mean, I could give you a number of examples. I'll give you just one, frankly, from high school when my baseball coach, in 7th grade. So I'm in 7th grade and the boys are just like doing like batting practice, you know, during one of our practices, or it may have been pregame, and Mr. Radcliffe was just like throwing them some practice balls, and this kid, Brandon, ends up hitting a frozen rope, like just a knockout line drive ball, like right into my left shoulder. Like, I literally had a dead arm for a week. I had the greatest bruise of my life. Like, it was insane. And yet I actually didn't even say anything. Like, when this coach would have me, I would literally just like feed him the balls, like, yes master, here's the ball. You know what I mean? And holy shit. And I never bothered to speak up and be like, coach, like, shouldn't I have a glove? He'd didn't even want me to bring a glove. And he's like behind this safety net, right? I'm off to the side, and this kid, Brendan, just hits a line drive right at me. I don't have a glove to defend myself. And it's just the case that I didn't even bother speaking up. I didn't bother saying anything to my coach or even to my parents. I just kind of like dealt with the crazy bruised arm because I was behaving in more of a covert fashion. Just kind of keeping my head down, not trying to create any waves, not trying to create any ripples. Nope, didn't have it. So over time, I've systematically become more overt, more Christian-like, because that's just what always resonated with me. And if that resonates with you, realize that that's your North Star. Try to emulate these people, realizing that it's not the behaviors that you do because of how you're perceived by others. This is so important, man. It's because you want to be more like Christian, who is just at ease with himself. In contrast to Kyle, who clearly wasn't. You could see he was disheveled internally. He didn't have a steady gaze. He couldn't look you in the eyes. And that's something that personally I just didn't want for myself. I wanted to be someone who could look you in the eyes, give you a firm handshake, and be confident. Hit on really attractive nurses. That may sound petty. That's just what I wanted. And if you want that too, you can get it. You just have to bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. And I'm here to help you do that. I'm here to help you level up in this life, become the man, actually have a map that you can follow. That's all that I ever wanted, man. That's all that I ever needed. I was like, just get me out of this pain after being rejected by this girl that I was head over heels in love with. Just give me the how-to. Give me the actions. You give me an inch, and I'll go the mile. I love you very much, my friend. Drop a comment down below. What was your biggest takeaway from this? Do you lean more masculine or more feminine? And more importantly, do you want to become more masculine or more feminine? Love you very much. And as always, until next time, my friend, find your freedom. Peace.